Welcome to Recipes for Grief, heartfelt storytelling for feely foodies. I'm your host, Andrea Sexton Dumas.
Y'all are in for a real treat today with our guest, Miss Funke. Synchronicity brought us together last year while I was visiting Oaxaca, and I was able to attend a ritual that she hosted around Dia de los Muertos. I've got to be honest, I was not expecting some of her responses. Her perspective about grief really surprised me, and by the end of the conversation, I felt like I was in a full trance state. This talk feels like a transmission, and I'm just so very grateful to her and her ancestors for their generosity. She actually texted me a prayer connecting to Mother Earth that I'll share with you here. I am grounded. My spirit is grounded deep into the earth. I am calm, strong, centered, and peaceful. I am able to let go of fear and trust that I am eternally safe. I am worthy of all things beautiful. Ashe. Miss Funke loves life and believes in staying true to oneself. Enjoy. Miss Funke, thank you so much for joining me here on Recipes for Grief. I'd like to start by asking you the question I ask all of our guests, which is, how have you been sleeping recently?
I always sleep well. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem sleeping at all. For some reason, my automatic clock wakes me up at 4 o'clock every morning, or a little before 4 every morning. And when that happens, and because of my practice in Ifa, I bless my head on my ori. So I hold my hand to my head and I say a prayer to my ori, which will guide me how my day should go. And then after I do that, then I'll listen to something for meditation on how I want my day to go, and in gratitude. And probably during that time, I'll probably doze back off to sleep and start dreaming. And that's usually how my day starts off for me. And then I'll wake up totally, I'll say around about 7, where I'm getting ready to get out of the bed. And then before I do that, then I'll say another prayer. And then I go into my prayer room and I pray to my Orishas. And that's how I start my day.
That sounds lovely. We have connected before about dreams. I actually had a dream and I reached out to you for help with understanding. Can you share a little bit about what your dream life is like? Do you dream often, or do you remember your dreams often?
I don't dream often. No.
Okay.
But when I do dream, the dreams I do have are very significant. Case in point, if ever I dream about dogs, which I do dream, I know because of my practice in Ifa, one of the Orisha, who is Ògún, he's the Orisha of iron and the spirit of war. And he's the one who clears the path. But his sacred animal is the dog. So whenever I dream about the dog, that is letting me know subconsciously that Ògún is removing any type of obstacles or blockages in my life that I am not aware of, to clear my path for me to do what it is I need to do. So I know then that when they appear, then that means in the morning when I fully get out of bed, then I'll go and say a prayer to Ogun, giving him thanks for coming to me in the dream as his sacred animal, the dog, to let me know that there is something subconsciously going on in my mind that I am not aware of that could be blocking me from receiving my good. So I go to him. That's when the dog appeared. So that's one of the dreams that have significance, to me. But then there's dreams that I have had that I can remember going back years that are still prevalent in my life today. And when I say years, I mean years, like going back I'm talking about going back to the early 80s.
Decades.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But that's the one dream that really sticks with me is when Ogun appears as the dog, because that is his sacred animal. So I do go and I give him thanks because there's something that subconsciously he's taking care of for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
If we can just stay on this topic a little while longer, I know that you have a dog. I also have a dog. We are dog people. Do you relate having a dog, as a dog mom, if you will, with your relationship with Ogun and your Ifa practice, or is this something separate for you?
It's just something separate for me.
Okay.
I've always, because I'm single, and since I've been single for many, 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 many years, I've always wanted a companion. And I figured the best companion for me to have would have been a dog.
Yes.
And so when I moved here to Oaxaca, I came to Oaxaca. In fact, I came to Oaxaca on October 20th of 2021, and that was my father's birthday. And so I left Panama and I came here, and that was in, like I said, October. And then that following year, I was at we have a plaza, we have a mall here named Micro Plaza, and it had a pet store. And I had went to Walmart and I saw this pet store, and I went in there and saw this little cute dog that looked like a bear. He was so cute. And I fell in love with him. And then I came home. And so when I came home, I went to Ogun. And I asked Ogun, would it be okay for me to have a dog? So I divined, and he said Ijife, which means yes. So I went back to the store and got the dog. And because of his color, he was the reddish brown miniature or toy poodle. I named him Cognac. So I've had Cognac now. It'll be 4 years, the 2nd of March. And he was born January 4th of 2022. So I got him 2 days before his 2-month birthday.
Oh my goodness.
And I've had him ever since.
He sounds like a wonderful companion. The smile on your face.
He is spoiled rotten.
I know, that's right. As he should be.
I cannot do anything without him. I did not realize that poodles have separation anxiety.
Oh.
And he has to be around me all the time. And with it just basically be him and I mean, sometimes I think he my man,
Ooh.
because he sleeps in the bed with me. He's been sleeping in the bed with me ever since he was a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
He's fully potty trained. So sometimes I have to scoot him over because he's taking the whole bed.
A little teeny thing.
And then when he has to get up in the middle of the night to go use the restroom, he'll hop in and out of the bed to wake me up for me to come and let him out so he can relieve himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll go on, take his little tail right on back upstairs, get in the bed and go to sleep. So, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
So but he gets along well with other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
He's not territorial. My daughter has 2 dogs. But they get along very well. And he gets along with people.
Mm-hmm.
He's very, very affectionate. So he's not a dog that'll snap at you. He'll just come and he is so loving.
Mm.
He'll just come and embrace you, and he'll jump up on you and he'll hug you. He'll wrap his paws around your legs.
Oh my gosh, that's so
And
cute.
right now he's on the couch spread out asleep.
Well, tell him I said hello when he wakes up, please.
I sure will.
Thank you. So you mentioned your father's birthday, October 21st. And we met.
No, his birthday is October the 20th.
Oh, the 20th, excuse me.
And I moved here on his birthday in 2021.
Okay, thank you. So I know that your father has been passed for some time, and we met.
Yes.
We actually met right around Dia de los Muertos. I was visiting Oaxaca and went to a grief ritual that you hosted. Can you tell us a little bit about your father? Your relationship?
Well, my father made his transition on January 5th of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a very interesting man. My father's first generation, born in Los Angeles. His family migrated from Shreveport, Louisiana. My grandfather came first in 2021. Then my grandmother and the 2 older children came in 2022. And my father was born in 2023.
1923.
Yes, 1923.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the first 2 children were born in Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
And then the children after my father all were born in Los Angeles. And there were a total of 8 of them. And my father was the oldest son by my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandmother had been married previously, so her first child was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the oldest child of my grandfather was a girl named Doris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then all the children, with the exception of the 2 oldest, were born in Los Angeles. And like I said, my father's the oldest boy of my grandmothers and grandfathers. My father's a Tuskegee airman.
Mm.
My dad went into the Army at the age of 19. He was not drafted. When he went in with 2 other guys. They enlisted together. They went down to Alabama, to Tuskegee. They were trained there. And then from there, he had training in Sheffield, which is a base outside of Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he met my mother. While he was in training, she was with the UFO or the USO, whatever the dance, they had the gathering to entertain the servicemen.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was kind of large for her age, so she looked much older than what she actually was. And then after that, my dad went to Ramatelli, Italy, where he stayed the full time during the war. He was a red tail. He was the crew chief for the plane called Skipper's Darling 3,
Mm-hmm.
and his captain was Captain Jug Turner, who was the squadron commander. And during the time my father was there in Remington, telling him and my mother courted, that's what they called it back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then the interesting thing about it was that both my mother's older brother and my dad's older brother was stationed in northern Africa. And they got to talking and found out through their talking that my Uncle Ted, who's my dad's older brother, and Jessa Lee, my uncle, and Tucker, who's my father's older brother,
Mm-hmm.
found out that my mother and my uncle, that they were courting one another.
Right, right.
Okay.
Small world.
Yes. So my daddy was a crew chief of Skipper's Darling 3. Skipper Darling 3 is the most photographed of any of the Tuskegee planes.
Mm.
Whenever you see, there'll be pictures shown of, I think, 4 guys. One was with Benjamin O. Davis, who was the commander of the Tuskegee Airmen. And you'll see on it, it'll say Skipper's Darling 3. So they're in front of that picture. And then when my dad came home from the war in 45, I believe it was October 45 when it ended, my mother joined him in 46 in Los Angeles from Detroit. She wasn't born in Detroit. She was actually born in Mobile, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And her mother was born in Columbus, Georgia. But my mother came from Mobile about the age of 10. So in 1937, my mother and her younger sister joined my grandmother and her 2 older brothers in Detroit. And that's where my mother was until she left at the age of 19 to go to Los Angeles to marry my father. And then the following year, I was born.
Oh. What are your parents' names, by the way?
My father's name is Clarence Huntley Jr., and my mother's name was Helen Tucker. That was her maiden name.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about your parents, and I would like to speak with you about grief. So interweave that however you see fit. But I know that ancestor veneration and ancestor connection is a large part of your tradition in Ifa. Can you speak to your relationship with your parents since they've made their transitions and how that is such a part of your life?
Well, it's very interesting because for a long time, death is something that I have always been afraid of, for whatever reason. And back in back in 2000,
Okay.
I was introduced to Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. That's the Buddhism that Tina Turner, Herbie Hancock, Nestor Torres, Santana, all of them are affiliated with Nam-myoho Renge Kyo.
That's right.
Which has to do with the mystic law of cause and effect. And one of the prayers, it talked about the ancestors, and it talked about, in some of the prayers and the studies, it talked about death. And I got a clear understanding at that time about death, that realizing that Death itself is a part of life.
Mm.
So, like I said, in 2000, I got introduced to it, but I did not come actively involved in it until '01.
Mm-hmm.
I received my Gohanzen, which is the scroll that goes inside the Butsudan, which is I guess you could say an altar
Mm-hmm.
that holds it. And I had just started practicing, and my mother in 20, and I mean in '01, at that time had been diagnosed with cancer of the liver,
Mm.
which I hadn't known my mother was sick. And at the time I was living in Seattle. So when I went to visit her, I found out that this is what was going on with her. And I remember the time that I stayed with her, that I did a lot of the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I constantly did it until I think I was getting on everybody's nerve because wasn't nobody practicing it but me.
Yeah.
So when the time came, I remember I was in Seattle. I just visited my mom and I was going back to Seattle. And I remember I looked at my mom and she was in the hospital bed in the family room. We had a hospital bed set up in the family room. And she looked at me. And when I looked at her, she just had this glow.
Mm.
She was illuminating. And when I said illuminating, I mean she was fully illuminating.
Mm.
And she looked at me and she said, "Baby, this is the first time I've ever seen you this happy.
Mm.
Forgive me." And she says, "You know, I want you to go and live your life." Well, my mother and I have never had the best of relationships because it felt like they never accepted me for me because I was the one that could never stay still.
Mm-hmm.
But when she told me that, it seemed that she finally accepted me for being who I am
Mm.
and to stay true to who I am.
That's right.
So I went back to Seattle, and about maybe 10 days later I get a call. I get a call saying that mama had been sent to the hospital and they didn't think that she was going to pull through. I said, "Okay." So I made arrangements to go um, to Los Angeles from Seattle. And I don't know what happened, but I go and I tell the lady what's going on. So what she did was she reduced my fare
Mm.
and gave me a grievance fare. And but I knew that my mother wasn't going to make her transition until I was there, that she
Mm.
was going to wait for me. So I went directly from the airport to the hospital. Got to the hospital. My dad was there, my sister was there. And then family members started coming. And so we were in the room. No, I take that back. I went to the hospital to see her. Then I stayed with her, and then the hospital said, "No, you guys can go home." So we went home. We were all in bed. We get a call from the hospital saying it was time to come back to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't believe that she was going to make it. I said, "Okay." So we got to the hospital and we were there around the bed, talking. She wasn't really knowing that we were there. And I remember that the nurse came in and said that that mama was that she was in a coma now because her eyes were fully dilated, and that for us to say our goodbyes, whatever it was. So we were able to say our goodbyes individually. But I remember before she went into her coma, I was standing next to her holding her hand. And I was talking to her, and I was getting ready to leave, not leave, but I just was, she grabbed my hand and held onto my hand so tight. And I told her, I said, Mom, I'm not going nowhere. I'm here. So I stood there. Okay. And so shortly after that, she went into the coma, and everybody was able to say what they needed to say to her individually. They had their own time with her. So Daddy was on one side of the bed. I was on the other side of the bed. And I remember him kept saying, Helen, don't leave me. Helen, don't leave me. Helen, don't leave me. Well, at this time, my parents had been together since my mother was 15 when she met my dad. And here it is. They've been together since she was 15 and she was now 74. So they had a good life together.
Yeah.
And so I was telling him, I said, Dad, I said, it's okay. I said, it's okay to let her go. I said, it's okay to let her go. Let her go. I said, don't be selfish. I said, let her go. And the nurse came in, and they told us that she had transitioned. And so I remember whispering I remember the expression on her face when she transitioned. And I got up here and I remember whispering in her ear, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay. When we went to the mortuary, I think it was the next day, whatever, to bring her clothes or what she was going to be dressed in and all of that. Her face was completely different. I said, the mortician, I said, her face didn't look like that when she transitioned. Because now my mother had a smile on her face. And the mortician said, when that happens, that means that your mother went in peace. Now, to say that if I cried after my mother's passing, no, I didn't. Did I mourn my mother? I did. But I didn't cry because understanding Buddhism and understanding death, or what I thought my understanding of death was, she was always with me. So the only part of her I was going to be missing was the physical.
Right.
But I knew I could call upon her at any time. And I think the good thing out of all of this was that my mother and I were able to have a healing.
That's right.
We were able to heal before she made her transition. So I think that's why I wasn't sad. Because something that I always wanted, I received it. And that was, she let me know just how much she loved me before she made her transition.
Wow.
And that she finally accepted me. So that was that was it. Our healing that we had. I was 54, she was 74. That it took us that long, but we were healed. Our relationship was finally healed. So there was no reason for me to be sad. And I wasn't.
What a gift.
So that was my experience with the passing of the transition of my mother.
Wow. And it seems like you still carry that faith, knowing that that you can call on her at any time, that it's the physical
That's
you
right.
miss.
And I can. I can. And then with my father, who made his transition in 2015, well, before that, I was living in the Washington D.C. area. I left Seattle and I came and stayed with my dad for a while because my dad didn't know how to cook. Because my mother always cooked.
Right,
Now
right.
he can now he can fry some good eggs now, but he couldn't cook.
Fair.
So I left Seattle and I came and stayed with him for about a year. I wasn't able to find work in Seattle, so I ended up going back to the Washington, D.C. area, where I contracted off and on for the Department of Defense, where I knew I could get employment. And then I stayed there, and being a contractor is not something that is stable. So I found myself out of work. So during that time, I ended up I was sitting in the bed watching something about Reiki. So I said, "Oh, okay." So I got my credit card out and signed up to go take Reiki, learn Reiki, which was I was in Virginia, but I was in Northern Virginia, and the Reiki was in Southern Virginia. So it was like an hour, about a 90-minute drive. So I went there and I did this for a while, and I studied I studied Reiki. And I never became a master. I was a Reiki 3.
Okay.
And then for some reason, the way I wanted to use Reiki had to do with working with hospice. So I ended up going and signing up with a Virginia Hospice Association, which was in Falls Church, Virginia, which was right around the corner from me. So I went and I took the classes and all that, got registered to do for Reiki and all of that. And I said that this is something that I wanted to do because I wanted to help people with their transitioning. And so what I did was my son-in-law, he has sarcoidosis. So I was getting members, friends I know, and when I started using Reiki on them to see how it was doing, and I would use Reiki on him, and he was telling me his experience things that he was experiencing during the treatment and all of that. And then a friend of my daughter's, who's known her since she was a teenager, her mother had been facing some health issues. So she had called and asked me if I would come and give her mother Reiki treatment. And that's what I did. And then shortly after that, her mother transitioned. Um, and that was the whole thing I wanted to do. But in the meantime of doing all of this, I had got an assignment to go over to England to work for the Department of Defense and Intelligence. So I went to R.F. Molesworth, which is really interesting because that's where my father was before he
Wow.
went to Ramatelli. He was there at
Wow.
Molesworth for not very long, but he was there. And then I wanted to do hospice there in England, but because of my work, it didn't allow me to do it. But I still did. I was trained as a masseuse. So I did that. And then while I was there, I learned there was this guy there who done something called QE, with deal with energy. So he trained me. So I worked with him and I was doing massages. I was doing QE. I was doing Reiki. So I was doing all of this. And then my dad, they would allow us to come home once a month. We could come home once a month but we could not be there for a consecutive 30 days because we would lose our home leave. But we could come home at different increments within 30, with a total of 30 days, but it couldn't be consecutive.
Okay.
That they would pay for us to come home. So I would come home and visit. So this one time I came home to visit Daddy. He was doing well. I had faced some health challenges during that time, and I had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And you know, I was going to go through the chemo, and I was going to go through all of that. But then I got to talking. I said, I had to do some talking to God and say, God, you know what? Talk to me, because it wasn't setting right in my spirit to do chemo. I said, just give me some kind of sign. Just give me something to let me know if this is what I should do. And he stayed true to his word, and he did. And he let me know this ain't something you need to do. And I didn't do it. And one of them was in a dream, actually.
Okay.
And he said, no, you don't need to do it. I remember I was in the operating room on the table. And I asked the surgeon, I looked up at him and I said, I'm okay. He said, you fine.
Wow.
And so when I went to go see the oncologist, he was telling me, well, when you do, you're going to have chemo, but it's only for 9 weeks. And it'd only be for 45 minutes and all of this. And then he said, I want you to go see the infusion nurse. So we went and saw the infusion nurse, and what the infusion nurse said and what the doctor said didn't come together. And my co-worker who went with me, she said, and we looked at each other, she said, but that's not what the doctor said. So the infusion nurse said, well, come on, we got to go talk to him. And so when we went and talked to him, the words that came out of his mouth was, she knows more than I do because she does it all the time. And I said, thank you, God. That was all I needed. You the doctor. You the oncologist.
Right. And you don't know
You're the
what's
one
going
who
on.
prescribes the dosage for the infusion nurse. So you gonna tell me the infusion nurse know more than you?
Listen.
I don't think so. So I said, thank you.
Bye.
So I never had the chemo.
Wow.
And then when I went and saw the surgeon, he said, well, I hear you didn't. I said, that's right. I said, I sure didn't. I said, because this is my life. It's my choice.
Mm.
I'm gonna have a quality
Mm.
of life. That's how I'm gonna live my life.
Mm.
They were pissed off, excuse me, they were upset with me, but I didn't care because this was my life. This is my choice. I'm gonna live my life on my terms,
That's right.
not how you say I should live my life.
Mm.
So that's exactly what I did. So after that, I didn't go home for a year. And so when I went back, had the colonoscopy, everything was fine, cancer free. They said they got everything,
Wow.
and they did. And I always said, because first off, one thing I never did, I never claimed it. I never brought it as mine.
Mm.
I told the oncologist, I told the surgeon, and my friend told me this. She said, "You told that doctor, I hear what you say, but I don't accept what you say."
Mm.
So I never brought it on as my own.
Mm.
Now, and I've never claimed that I had it. Only thing I would say is that I had something in my colon that's something that was unhealthy that needed to be removed.
Mm.
So they removed everything that was unhealthy and kept everything that was healthy.
Wow.
So that's how I went through this whole time. So there's no traces of whatever. I don't have it. There's
Mm.
nothing there.
Come on.
So, like I said, it was a year. I hadn't been home. So I went home and visit my dad. And I stayed 10 days. I always said 10 days. So I had been home back to England, maybe 10 days, maybe less than that. I get a call from my oldest daughter. She said, "Have you talked to Daddy?" I said, "No." I said, "Why?" She said, "Call him." So I called him. And I'm talking to my dad. He seemed like he couldn't breathe.
Mm.
So then I called my daughter. I said, "Will you call you up?" Well, anyway, I ended up going to the hospital. Um, I had something, the Masons there, the Masonic Lodge there in England, wanted me to give a talk on my dad being a Tuskegee Airman. So I couldn't leave but I left the following day. So I went and he was in the hospital. When I walked into that hospital room, I didn't even recognize my daddy.
Oh my
He was
goodness.
not the same man that I had just left. He was so skinny.
Mm.
So when I get there, he saw me, he got the smile on his face, and he told the nurse, he said, "This is my daughter from England." So I stayed with him for a while, and then I went to the house. So I met my sister at the hospital the next morning. And we went to the hospital, and then we went down to the cafeteria. So my sister had asked the nurse, say, "Please have the doctor call us when he comes on the ward." Well, they didn't. So when we got upstairs, the nurse said, "Oh, Mr. Huntley has been discharged." And they wanted to send him to rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
And my daddy said, "Nope, I'm not going to rehabilitation." He said, "Because my daughter from England is here and she gonna take care of me." So I was there. So we get home. I said, "Daddy, you know I don't live here. I live in England." Make a long story short, I ended up leaving my assignment in England
Mm.
to come back to California to care for my dad. And that was in I think June or no, it was June of 2012. So I went and I cared for my father I was his caregiver 24/7. My daddy ended up, what happened was, my dad didn't have any life-threatening anything, but his epiglottis and the esophagus had deteriorated. So he ended up, what happened was he had ended up getting aspiration pneumonia. And so they told me how to feed him. You know, he had to have soft foods, no drinking through a straw, no slurping or anything like that. Okay. But my dad was hard-headed. So he wanted to do things the way he wanted to do things. So what had ended up happening, he had to end up getting a feeding tube. Okay? So he got a feeding tube. Never got an infection. Never, ever got an infection. We got up here. I said, Daddy, you and I need to go through some healing ourselves. So I would take him to the psychiatrist, a one-on-one for him, and then him and I would do a group, because my father really never knew me. He only knew what he heard of me. Because I never really lived in California. I always lived away. And so during this time, I did a lot of work inside of his house, because Daddy was on oxygen. And I had the whole inside his house redid, carpet pulled up, repainted, drapes pulled down, shutters. The whole house was new. You know what? After me doing all that, my daddy didn't have to have oxygen anymore.
Oh, wow.
So he started getting, I think his last maybe 8 months, he started getting weaker. And it wasn't because he was sick, he was just tired. Because my daddy worked at LAX until he was 87 years old.
Oh my gosh.
5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And now he's not working anymore. You know, and I tried to keep him busy. You know, we would go on outings and stuff. I would go take him to visit his sisters, the ones that were, you know, and stuff like that. Well, a month after I got there, the sister that was right next to him, younger than him, she made her transition. So I would go take him to see the other sister. So we get in the time I had a convertible. So we get in my convertible and we would just go and we would go visit his sister. Took him to the family reunion. You know, so we were having good times together. I ended up putting him in an adult child care because I felt that he needed to be around people, not just me. I just didn't want him to sit there watching TV, not doing nothing, right? So I would give him exercise to do at home. I would give him word search puzzles to try and find the words and all of that. So he was doing good. But like I said, after a while, he started getting weaker. So then they assigned us, so they said it was time for him to probably go into hospice. So there was a nurse, he had a nurse physician that would come and see him. But, you know, I had been in the medical field. That was one of my other lives. You know, I was an occupational therapist at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where I worked with stroke patients. I worked at Harbor General Hospital. I worked convalescent care. So I had good patient care. So I took good care of him even when he started getting bed sores. And his bed sores started tunneling. And all of this time, you would come into the house. You never knew that there was anybody in there that was sick because you could not smell sickness in the house. My daddy was always clean.
Mm.
Always. His bed sores started healing. I mean, he had bed sores on the heel of his foot.
Mm.
Then he had the bed sores that had started tunneling at his tailbone, where you could stick your hand
Mm.
down, down it and go downside the femur, and when the nurse came, nurse physician came, he could not believe not the that my father ever had an infection. He never had an infection from when he had the feeding tube, no infection. When he had the bed sores, no infections. Nothing.
Mm.
This particular day, well, this was 2014. Fifth generation was born. My son's daughter had her first child
Mm.
a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days before my father made his transition. So for those 10 days, there was 5 generations.
Mm.
There's 91 years difference between him and his first great grandchild. This particular day, I'll never forget, it was right after the first of the year. Dad and I was home. I was sitting in the living room. No, I was in the family room. Daddy was in in the living room because I had put him in the living room. He had his hospital bed, everything. He's next to the window where he get a fresh breeze,
Mm.
everything. So this day I'm sitting in the family room, and I heard a voice says, "Go give your daddy a treatment."
Mm.
I said, "Okay." But I would tease daddy all the time. I said, "Daddy, you know you want to go."
Mm.
I said, "But the only reason you don't want to go because you don't want to hear mama's mouth when you get there." And that's what I would tell him.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, this particular day, got up. I went in the room, in the living room, and he was laying on his back. And I said, "Daddy, I'm gonna give you a treatment, okay?" He said, "Okay." So I gave him a treatment,
And is this a Reiki treatment?
a Reiki treatment. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I gave him a Reiki treatment. So it was just him and I there. My son who was there, him, he had went somewhere because it was during the New Year holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter and my granddaughter, they were away. So it was just me and daddy. So I went and gave him a Reiki treatment. So I'll never forget this, 8:45, I got up here, I cleaned him really well, gave him his last medication, and I kissed him on his forehead. I said, "I love you. I'll see you in the morning." He said, "Okay." So I went to bed. Everybody came home during the night while I was asleep. So that morning I got up, went downstairs, went into the bathroom, got the container so I can empty his catheter.
Mm-hmm.
Got it, went in the kitchen, started getting his meds ready that he needed to take in the morning, first thing. Went into the living room and turned on the light. And when I turned on the light, I realized there was no movement, because usually when I turn the light on, he would start moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? But this particular morning he didn't. This was January the 5th. So I looked, and he was laying in the fetus position.
Mm.
His mouth was open. There was no color. I touched him. He was cold, so I know rigor mortis had started setting in.
Wow.
And I kissed him and I said, I love you. I called, I did everything I did everything the nurse's physician told me to do. She says when he transitioned, you call the police.
Mm.
This is how it is in California, in Los Angeles. I had to call the police in our area. We were, since we were in an corporate area, it was the sheriff's department because we were county.
Mm-hmm.
So I called the mortuary, and then I called the physician, the nurse's physician, and that was it.
Mm.
And that's when he was fine.
Mm.
And they came. I called my sister. I went to Starbucks. I had to have my coffee now. So I went and had got my coffee. And when I got back there, the mortuary was already there because they were already there and they had already bagged him. The police was still there, and then the nurse physician was there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it.
Mm.
So that's what happened with my dad, and it didn't come to me until a few years later that after I gave him the Reiki treatment, that released him to transition. And he transitioned. And like I said, I didn't cry. I didn't cry for him either. I didn't. Because, and I guess I didn't cry for him either because him and I had a healing between the both of us. I was able to heal whatever needed to be healed between me and my parents. My mother passed away October 22nd, 01. My father passed away January 5th, 2015. And I was able to heal whatever trauma, whatever it was we had within ourselves, I was able to heal with them.
Wow.
So there was no reason for me to grieve them. I missed them.
Yeah.
And when my daddy went out of here, girl, my daddy's service was televised by Channel 4 and Channel 11. Live.
Wow.
Standing room only, over 400 people. Because whenever you ever heard of a Tuskegee airman, it was always the pilots. It was never the ground crew. The ground crew needed some recognition. But the most important thing of all of this was that, remember I told you there were 3 guys that enlisted together.
Yeah.
All 3 of them came back home together. One of them, Bob, he had made his transition years and years ago. But Joe Chambry and my father remained friends. My father would go to Joe Chambry's house every year for an annual barbecue of the Tuskegee Airmen. The interesting thing about this was Joe Chambry and my father made their transition the same day in their home, and they're 6 weeks apart in age.
Oh, wow.
My daddy was 6 weeks older than Joe Chambry.
Wow.
So when I got a call from AP Press and I told them the story, it was in the LA Times. They did the center page of the LA Times was of my daddy and Joe Chambry. Two childhood guys growing up together, transitioning together.
Right. Mm.
And that's why it was so, that's why they televised it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the LA Times did an interview after his transition. And you always hear me say transition.
Yes.
Because transition means he has transitioned from this realm to another realm.
Right.
That's why I won't say that my father's passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He has transitioned
Mm-hmm.
from one realm to another realm. But the most important thing of all of this, when I made my full initiation into Ifa
Mm-hmm.
on the last day, when I was given my name, my mother and my father, who both have transitioned over to the other side, appeared and spoke.
Oh my gosh.
And what they said was, my father said, my mother said that she was sorry that she was not able to show and give me the love that she felt for me while she was still here. My father said he could not have asked for any better care than the care that I gave him.
Mm.
Those were the messages I received from both my parents after they had crossed over to the other side doing my Ifa initiation. And after that happened, I got my Egungun. The Egungun is my ancestors, which is retired. So I've been initiated into my ancestors.
Mm. What exactly does that mean, that you've been initiated? Are you like an ancestor in training for someone who's not in Ifa?
I am a living ancestor. I'm over the past of 70 years old. I'll be 79 in May. I am a living ancestor.
Yes, yes. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Mm.
I'm a living ancestor.
You know, Miss Funke, since we met in Oaxaca back in October, when I talk to my friends and my loved ones about you, I refer to you as my mentor. And I've met your daughter, I've met your son-in-law. I have chills when you say that. Like it resonates with my body as someone who has only known you for a short time. And as you were speaking, the feeling of like grief as love kept coming up in me. It's like you don't have to grieve because you have loved so thoroughly. You have loved your parents with all of your soul. When your mother said, live life on your terms. And you also, it sounds to me like you cared for your parents on your terms. And so you have really embodied the wisdom of an ancestor. Thank you so much.
So when you say grief, I do not grieve.
Right.
I don't, because their love, because grief doesn't only mean death.
Right.
Grief means letting go.
Mm.
When you lose a job, people grieve because they've lost a job. Grief is just having to let go of something.
Mm.
I don't grieve my parents. Sure, I miss my parents,
Yes.
but I don't grieve them because I know that I can talk to my parents. I can talk to not only my parents, I can talk to any of my ancestors of good character.
That part.
I can talk to them at any time and ask for them to reveal and let me know exactly what it is that I am to do in order for me to fulfill that which I was brought here to do.
Mm.
And what I'm finding myself doing right now, I'm finding myself working more and more with women
Mm-hmm.
who wants to be more in contact or connected with their ancestors to relieve any past trauma that they have experienced in the life. And the only way we can do that is connect with our ancestors.
Mm.
Because they are the ones whose shoulders we're standing on.
Mm.
Your ancestors' blood is running through you right here, right now. You're standing on their shoulders, those you know and those you don't know.
Mm.
So your ancestors are also within you. Our ancestors in all of us. That's why it's so important for us to be connected to them. That's why it's so important that I know people grieve, but if you understand what death really is, okay, this morning, when you woke up, you're not the same person this right now as you were when you woke up this morning.
That's fair.
So that person that woke up this morning is gone.
Mm.
You're a new person right now.
Wow.
So every time there's something about us, everything that changed, every transformation that we make in life, we are anew. The old is let go. So that is, the old you is gone. That old you don't exist anymore. So as far as I'm concerned, death don't exist because death is a transformation.
Mm.
And you can transform while you still walking on this plane.
Mm.
You don't have to wait until you transition over to the ancestral realm to experience, to be reborn again.
Mm. So for someone who wants to begin to connect with their ancestors of good character, that's really important. How would one go about that if they're just beginning on that path? Or, maybe they've heard some things, maybe they've got some crystals on a table, but not, I'm sure nothing like your altar room. How would someone begin to connect with their ancestors of good character?
Well, the reason I say it's important to connect with ancestors of good character because all of our ancestors did not have good character. That's just like people right here walking this plane right now is not of good character.
Mm-hmm.
When you call upon your ancestors of good character because they have transitioned over, you still are able to bring in their energy.
Mm.
all you have to do is call upon your ancestors. That's all. Touch the ground 3 times and call upon your ancestors of good character. You can, an altar is so very simple to set up. You can get a small chair, a table, get a white cloth, get a picture or personal items or whatever of that ancestor. Get some fresh water, because water is living. Get a green plant, because a plant is living. And you can pour a libation. You can say anything. You can get a glass of water and say, I'm calling upon my ancestors of good character. I'm calling upon my ancestors of good character. I'm calling upon my ancestors of good character. I'm standing here before you today, and give your name. And you ask that ancestor for guidance. You ask that ancestor for instruction. If you know that there's a certain food that ancestor, like, prepare that food for that ancestor and give it to them. If you know there's a certain drink that ancestor like, give them some. If they like some whiskey, they like some, whatever they like. If they like it, give it to them. If there's a piece of jewelry, a favorite piece of jewelry that someone, your grandmother, your grandfather, something that they like, give it to them. Like if there's a certain word that your somebody like to say, like, it just came to me right now because my father's favorite word was, what you say. That was, you tell my daddy something, he say, what you say. And everybody know my daddy by that. I'll talk to his favorite nephew. And his favorite nephew, who's his youngest brother, who's now made his transition, son, he says, you know what, cuz? He says, I miss the Sarge, because that's what he called my dad, the Sarge. He said, I can see him right now saying, what you say. And when you think of that, there's no sense of being sad. Because when you call upon your ancestors, you bringing them to you to give you the guidance, to give you the comfort, to give you whatever it is you need from them at that time. If it's something you're going through, you just sit down and talk to them, just like you and I are talking. You talk to them the same way. You don't have to use no fancy words. You say, you know what, this is what I'm going through. You probably know it already.
Right.
Because I know you're here with me. But show me what it is you want me to know. Reveal it to me. And they can come to you in a word, through music, through any type of animal. They'll come to you in a dream.
Yeah.
They'll come to you. But you have to be open and you have to be receptive to it. Because if they're coming because you are, what we have to remember, an ancestor will not come to you if they're not invited.
Right.
They have to be invited. And when they're invited, they're going to tell you the truth. Because the one thing, they'll never do anything against your will. So that's why they have to, and you have to invite them to reveal to you, which they already know.
Reveal
And
to me
you
what
have to
you
be
already
open
know.
and receptive to it, whether you like the message or not, because
That
the
part.
message they give you is going to be truth.
Mm. Which is why it's so important to be speaking to the ancestors of good character. That part. And it sounds like, and you and I have had a private conversation about this. I don't know my mother's side of the family that well. There are certainly people who have been adopted. They, really don't know anything. But it sounds like on your altar, if you're putting a white cloth and something living, so fresh water and a green plant, even if you don't maybe know specifically what they would have liked, that having something alive is a part of that invitation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our practice, we don't use a candle, burning of a
Okay.
candle,
Okay.
because that's light. We don't want to keep the ancestors in the light.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because
So that's why,
some,
but we still honor them by having something living,
right.
by the fresh water,
Mm-hmm.
because water is living, water is life.
Yes.
The plant,
Mm-hmm.
all of this is living.
That's right.
Their spirit is living, but we're not keeping their spirit in the light.
Mm.
We're keeping them alive, but not in the light.
Okay.
So that's why it's so important. If there's if there's a poem that your mom or your dad, whoever it was, we always want to put things on an altar that meant something to that person, or is remind you of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that ancestor have a favorite color, you can put something that is that color on your altar. If you have a picture of that ancestor, that's fine. That's better, because you can look and you can talk to that ancestor. But you don't have to have a picture of that ancestor. You can have something of that ancestor that's a resemblance of that ancestor to you.
Mm-hmm. Or something that reminds you
That's it. That
of them.
reminds you of that
Yeah.
ancestor. If it's
Yeah.
candy, I have an
Mm-hmm.
aunt named, my Aunt Wilhelmina. Girl, she would always keep peppermint in her pocket. We would call it old folks candy, because you always found old folks eating peppermint.
Yes.
So we say, Aunt Wilhelmina, you got any old folks candy? And she would go in her purse and give us a peppermint.
Mm.
It's just little things like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy,
Yeah.
and then you'll find out the more you talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to my ancestors every single day, and I ask for their guidance
Mm-hmm.
every single day. Every single day, because I know they're going to instruct me in the way that I should go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here talking, I'm thinking about, I ain't thought about it. I have not thought about my Aunt Wilhelmina in a long time. Yes, I
Mm.
did. I talked about her today. It's interesting. I talked about her today.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I cannot remember the last time I talked about her.
Mm.
And I talked about her. It was so funny, because we were talking about breasts,
Mm.
women's boobs
Mm-hmm.
at La Conception. Well, my family's not busty.
Okay.
And my mother sure wasn't busty. But my Aunt Wilhelmina, she was busty, okay? So this particular night, she spent the night with us. So we went in the room, and when we were in the room, she had her bra off, right? My sister and I held tail out that room because it scared us. We told my mama, we said, Mama, a beating stone ain't Wilhelmina. Because we had never in our life seen boobs that big. And seriously, I had not thought about my Aunt Wilhelmina in
Wow.
years. So I'm talking about her boobs at La Concetta today with the bee stinging her, well, with no bee. And my mama just told us how stupid we were. She said, these girls are crazy. And then just talking to you now.
Yeah, so
About
she's
her
here.
asking her about the peppermint. So what that's letting me know right now is that my Aunt Wilhelmina is here with me.
That's right.
She's been with me all day.
Yes.
And I did not realize it until I start talking to you. She's the one who, when I wanted to play piano, she loaned my mama $500 to buy me an upright piano.
Oh my God.
So I could learn, so I could play the piano. So while I'm talking to you now, my Aunt Wilhelmina is here with me.
Yes.
And all I have to say is, Aunt Wilhelmina, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everything that you done for me growing up as a child. I love you with every part of my being. Thank you.
Thank you and thank her. I am so filled with love right now. I have so much gratitude to you, Miss Funke, for bringing your family before us today and showing us how to embody love so that maybe we don't have to grieve. I have one final question for you before we close today. Like I said, I think, you know, as your mother instructed you to live life on your terms is certainly a recipe for good living. I'm curious about, and we met at La Cochessa.
La Concetta.
I think I always say it wrong. Next to the fruit stand where I went every day when I was visiting Oaxaca. And I know that fruit is a big part of your life, but can you just share with us what is nourishing your body right now? Maybe in addition to the old folks candy, if you're eating peppermints these days, but what is nourishing you right now?
I wouldn't, it's not food.
Say more.
It's not food. The thing that I feel right now is to see where I am right now and see where I've been. And realize what fills me right now the most and that nurtures and sustains me is that I am truly, truly staying true to who I am as a spiritual being.
Yes.
That I am living my truth. I can't live anybody else's truth but my own truth. I stand on my truth.
That's right.
And that's what I ask for. I stay connected to Mother Earth, who sustains me, who gives us life. Drinking of the water. That's why when I drink water, I pray over my water. And I ask the water to sustain me, for nurturing me, for keeping me healthy, vibrant, resilient. and bringing forth all the abundance and joy and peace for me to fulfill that which I was brought here to do. That is my food. My food is the food of all that which is good. My life is the food that show me that I am a person of good character, that I love you for who you are and for not who I want you to be, that I see the real you, not the you I want you to be. I see you. I see Adrian, the spirit. That's who I see. And that's my food. And that's what nurtures me. And when I speak this, it's my truth. I don't care anymore about what people say or think about me, because I'm not living my life for nobody but for me, and to be the best me that I can ever possibly be. For I know, unconditionally know, that I was created in and out of love. And that is my food.
Thank you so much. I don't think there's anything else to say. Thank you so much, Miss Funke. I'm going to stop our recording.
Thank you for listening. And now, here's a little advice from my grandmother.
Life isn't easy. You just have to make the best of it.